So today I would like to talk about brand engagement and the future of the interface. But the first thing I'd like to do is talk about cyborg anthropology. So could all of you hold up your phones really quickly? Excellent. So the faster that you held those up, the more cyborg you are. And the idea is that we're all cyborgs. It's not Terminator, it's not any of these other science fiction concepts, but every time you're interacting with an interface, even though it's not technically part of you, even though it hasn't been embedded under your skin, you're technically in a symbiotic relationship with a computer and you as an organic being. So a traditional anthropologist, for the time since the field has existed, they have been tasked with the idea of going out to other countries and looking at the anthropological other, which is these strange tribes of people that no one's interacted with. And they go and they say how interesting these people's kinship relations are, how curious their tools are, and then they write a report on it, and it's usually very academic, it's very hard for a general audience to read, and then people say, oh wow, we're very different here in the in the first world. So I wanted to turn that on its head, and when I found out that there was a field called cyborg anthropology, I thought fantastic, because cyborg anthropologists, instead of going out to another country and saying how different these people are, they go into the regular everyday reality and they say how strange these kids are today, and how strange everyone has these things in their pockets that cry and you have to pick them up and soothe them back to sleep, and they get hungry at night, you have to plug them into the wall and they can drink electricity from it. So that was the big difference that I wanted to study, because the problem is that technology is kind of seeping into our lives in all sorts of different ways. And the strange thing about it is that, while it's increasing in power, it's retreating in size. It's getting smaller and smaller, and we don't really notice it. And so now when we wake up in the morning, the first thing we do is check our emails. We don't really notice that as much anymore because it's part of our everyday life. So taking an objective step back and actually looking at how it affects us is really important. You know if somebody's a compulsive hoarder because, well, their house is filled with newspaper and cats, possibly. But now we fill our computers with cats and news articles, so technically we're all compulsive hoarders. But it's okay because you can't see it, and it's nice and tidy in this automatically produced space that we carry around in our pockets. The other thing about technology is that if you have a body, like all of us do, over the course of 80 years, it kind of turns against you, right? Organs start to fail, your skin gets kind of wrinkly, clothes don't fit as much anymore, you get tired when you wake up. And the same thing happens with technology. You keep a device for more than 2 or 3 years, it starts to look old and ugly, and maybe it'll shock you, or maybe it'll give you weird radiation, and it kind of makes you look dumb, right? And so you have to keep upgrading all the time, just like a piece of clothing or fashion or a car. And so the problem is that happens much more rapidly than us as humans. We have a very long lifetime. The code that our bodies are made up of is quite stable, but the code that just a cell phone is made up of is very much in flux. And of course, everybody's kind of evolving at the same rate. So we've got all these phones that we're used to working with, and if suddenly one of them breaks, you're just reduced to just a regular human instead of the superhuman that can press a button, hear everything on the other side of the world, and then hang up whatever you want to. I saw on this platform, there are these people that have the equivalent of a small room around from each other, and the problem is that, and this is kind of a lewd comment, that having a cell phone section is kind of like having a peeing section in a swimming pool. The audio information kind of just goes out everywhere. There's no way to contain it like you could before on a landline telephone. So this is one proposed solution. So the moral of the story is that I think that the best technology is really very invisible, that it just gets out of the way and lets you live your life and interact with people and interact with the world. Or take what was formerly invisible about the world and bring it to life in front of you, where you are, and use your location as a filter for that. The idea behind it is that your phone will become this remote control for your reality. And that location should empower people instead of mess with them and annoy them and bother them and drain their battery all the time. And of course, brands can help in that by actually sponsoring events to get people to add data, or give information about events and all sorts of things that aren't necessarily like advertising in a very typical sense, but like a more helping, empowering, interesting, quirky way of doing something that really resonates with people.